So very good afternoon to our guest for the day, Mr. S. Muralidharan, President of Lucas Indian Service, a company that probably needs no introduction in the aftermarket space. And also Mr. Muralidharan has been in the industry for a very, very long time, a very well-known and respected figure in the industry, if I may say so. Thank you so much, Mr. Muralidharan, for joining us and accepting our invitation for this video interaction.
Thank you.
Sure, sir. Pleasure having you with us. Let's start with an update at LIS. Currently, what is the scenario at your end, given that at least the southern part of India and Tamil Nadu, we're slowly coming out of the lockdown. So what is the current scenario at your end? And could you also brief us on the overall impact of COVID-19 on the aftermarket and also on LIS's business? If you can start off with the same, please.
Let me give you a preamble. 1 million trucks lying on the highways, a little over 1 million tourist buses and state transport undertaking buses lying in the yards, a little over 500,000 tractors lying idle in the field, over 1 crore of two-wheelers lying idle in the house, all due to a little-known virus which has affected from prime ministers to pedestrians and told the aftermarket that the world is one, that it's a time for collaboration, not competition. Vehicles didn't run, so obviously aftermarket is affected. There's nothing unusual about it. If you want to change something, the vehicle must run. The vehicle didn't run, so it's a high impact on aftermarket. But what is most significant is that people are gradually learning that this is the new normal. That wearing a mask is not something you will wear or only bandits wear when they go to rob a bank, but you wear to feel safe. And washing your hands is not something which your grandfather asked you, but something which is a must for your own good. And these are the things which one needs to know, and in my view is going to be the new normal for carrying business going forward. With that preamble, if you ask me about the industry starting from the smallest electrician, garage, retailer, dealer, manufacturer, supplier, vehicle manufacturer, has to learn to behave responsibly. Behaving responsibly is the single biggest thing which it needs to continue. Responsibly in terms of financial management. For example, earlier if my revenue was 100, I gave 50 to the supplier, 10 to the salaries, 10 for rent, 5 to the electricity bill, blah, blah, blah. Today, I do not have a revenue of 100. I have a revenue of 20. So the easy thing to do is to keep it to myself and give it to my staff as salary. That's the easy thing to do, but that's a wrong thing to do because in the process, the whole cash flow will stop of the entire cycle. Nobody will have money to spend. So the right thing to do that even the 20 you distribute to your suppliers, to your staff, for the electricity bill, for the rent, because only then that the cash flow will start. No point talking of government stimulus if you don't do your bit to improve the cash flow. The moment you behave this responsibility, you'll realize very clearly that you have a new normal. I'm a great believer in the Indian jugaad. You don't need patents, but the Indian jugaad then will find ways to save cash, ways to improve productivity, and thereby come to the new way of working. Specifically, LIS. The motto we did after the first lockdown, after the first few days, was LIS Cares, CARES, LIS Cares. Cares for the people, cares for the stakeholder. So taught people wear masks, sanitizers, fumigation. We actually developed an SOP for a zero defect in terms of nobody should be having a COVID. A new SOP, just like there's a line SOP, we have a standard operating process. How to open an office, how to open a stores, what should be the safe distance. In the canteen, what should be the difference in the chairs, how far it should be, and how far the seating arrangement should be, and right across. And we spread it to our service dealers, we have spread it to the transporters associated with us, to the retailers who are known to us, so that people are educated. They have a standard process now, what we call as an SOP, on how to be safe. This is part of LIS Cares. And the second thing is education. There's a wonderful chance for anybody to learn, be it a BS6 or about BS4 or about social skills. But 125 courses we conducted in the last 40 days, over 3,000 participants in English, Hindi, and some vernacular languages, from topics as simple as selling skills, going to the other extreme of BS6. What it taught people was Zoom is no more a boom, it's a site. And WFH is not some wrestling federation. WFH is work from home. And so there is a self-confidence that we have used at time positively. That's on LIS. In terms of Tamil Nadu government, I think they're doing their best. I am not going to comment on them. They're doing what they can. They have marked the red zones, they marked the containment zones, orange, green, the migrant issues, there are other issues. They're doing the routine checks. I think they're doing what they can. So some of our plants will start manufacturing. It's a task. The warehouses function. It's a task. They function at odd times, but I think that's all they can do. Right? This, in a nutshell, is what it is. Preamble, industry, LIS.
Wonderful, sir. That is very, very positive to hear that from a micro level to a macro level, how companies like you have actually used this time in the best possible way. You've not been kind of bogged down by this unprecedented crisis, if we may call so. And I think these should be very interesting, probably lessons for others as well, other suppliers, those in the aftermarket typically, to actually take cue and probably handle crisis in a similar way. So wonderful. From an aftermarket perspective, what do you think the different stakeholders ought to do to recover and tide over this crisis from where we are right now? We have crossed close to a couple of months since the entire lockdown began. We've crossed different phases of lockdown, but well and truly, as we see in our city of Chennai, the city is pretty much functional, almost back to normal in many ways, at least on the road in terms of the vehicles availability. So what do you think different stakeholders in the aftermarket ought to do to safely come out of this crisis and try to get their businesses back on track?
You're right, it's a little over 2 months. You can either say 2 months, or you can say it's just 2 months here. And I think that will show the attitude towards your business. The first is accept it's a new normal. Life is not going to be the same again. It will not be the same again. 1971 was a war. This is another war of a different kind. And that's the way it would be. Now, regarding specifics, I think it's also going to be a function of the vehicles. The tractor market has started recovering because they move within a zilla. And so if the zilla is in the green or orange zone, they're doing the plowing, they're doing the work, and things are going back. And if the workers are there, it's much easier for them. The market is opening up, especially if you see states like UP, for example, portions of Punjab, large portions of MP. The market has opened up for tractors. Clearly, the market opens up for two-wheelers. Because here again, if T Nagar is open, he can run around T Nagar with a two-wheeler. He need not go to Tundiarpet and Westmamblam too. And if there's a mechanic there for two-wheeler, he needs. And two-wheeler is simple because some products are straightforward. Two-wheeler doesn't start, change the battery. Straightforward. I need to change the lube oil. So certain product categories, certain channels, certain vehicles are going to be straightforward in terms of opening up tractors, two-wheelers. The toughest is going to be the tourist buses and the tourist cars. And nobody is going to Tirupati because it's not open. There is no apple season in Himachal Pradesh. No, there are no summer vacations Ooty or in Kodaikanal. So they are going to be the hardest hit and for the longest period. Because if they miss the season of summer, many of them, next will be monsoons where people don't travel much. Kerala, the monsoon will hit. They'll have to wait till Onam before it starts again. So that will be the last to come back on track. This is in terms of various vehicle categories. In terms of the distribution chain, the guy who's got the stock and service, they are going to be the winners. The Swiggy kind, the guy who's the Pizza Hut, 20 minutes, I give it to you, he is going to be the winner today, by far. He's got the part, he's going to give it. Today, everybody has learned that digital is possible. So when even the smallest retailer in his house realizes, I can get a medicine in half an hour, 1.5 hours, by simply punching on his mobile phone, his customer is not going to wait longer to get a spare part. His customer will also punch something, he expects to punch something in the smartphone and says, you must replace my bike here. You must give me the part. I'm not going to give it in the morning and leave it in the evening. I can get a medicine in 1 hour. I can get a food in half an hour. So why should I wait now to repair a two-wheeler, repair a car? I have to park it in the morning and go in the evening. Would be the attitude. So the speed of repair, whoever does it is going to be the winner in terms of both availability of parts. Which means strategically, companies which win the supply chain are going to be one of the winners. That is in terms of the market scenario as it is. Now to you.
Okay, sir. From a very interesting perspective, what you shared, I think LIS has been talking and walking the talk as well when it comes to digitization. I think this will be a very good time to actually reap some dividends and also lay the future for the same as well. What about different layers of the aftermarket? The distributors, the retailers, do you think they are all geared up to actually handle this crisis in a fair way financially and as well in terms of getting back their business back to normal? What do you think they have to do something specific right now, or probably just wait for the entire market to open up?
No, if you wait for the market to open up, you'll have to become another Kumbhakaran. It is not going to open up. You can't wait anymore because it's a digital world. My son is going to order for a spare part. And if he gets a wiper blade, he'll change it in the car himself because he's an engineer and he's quite confident about it. And so if he's not going to get the right value for money from a garage, he'll do it himself. And that will be a trend. Second, I certainly expect layers and layers of distribution network to collapse. Every layer must add value. You cannot have a distributor, wholesaler, semi-wholesaler, dealer, sub-dealer, retailer. You cannot have so many categories. You don't have that kind of margins to share between so many categories. So every chain must understand what is the value they're bringing to a customer. Otherwise, they're going to perish. The value can be wider range of stock. It can be quicker service. It can be better credit management. It can be anything. But if they're not giving value, they are not going to survive. He may be the most popular dealer in town today, but if he's not providing value, the retailer or the distributor will swallow him. Today, a big fleet operator with a BS second part, a big fleet operator aiming for a BS6 vehicle will expect service at his doorstep. They themselves have their own garages. It's very important that we recognize this. We, as the entire value chain of distributor, dealer, wholesaler, semi-wholesaler, retailer, whatever you call it. A big fleet operator with 1,000 vehicles has his own garage. He'd rather order on LIS or Tata Motors direct. And he'll expect the parts direct. He'll expect the service direct. He'll expect the repair instructions direct. So if all the people in the value chain are not adding value, they're going to be in for trouble. So this is going to be a major change which people need to be prepared for. And the last part in this is product knowledge. You're going to have so many kinds of vehicles. Overnight, you're going to have 3 generations of vehicles on Indian road. The old BS3, the old BS4, and the very new BS6. Overnight, it's going to happen because of COVID. Okay? The old BS4 are still not sold, they'll be sold. The new BS6 is already going to come, they will be sold. And some old BS3s are still running because the 15-year rule or 10-year-old scrap it rule is not yet implemented. So 3 generations of vehicles are going to be on Indian roads. To carry the spare parts for it needs a certain knowledge, which can come either via portals and digitization. And it cannot be somebody says, oh, 2026 a bulb I need. It will not be that. So if he's not adequately trained, either commercially or his counter salesman doesn't know the parts well, he's going to be in a bit of a trouble. To put it positively, if he's well trained in newer vehicles, he's going to have an edge. And keep in mind, electric vehicle is also around the corner. So it's not going to be trucks, buses, tractors. It'll be mobility solutions. You can have electric vehicles, you can have any other kind of vehicles. And that makes it interesting. And the set of dealers or the set of anybody in the channel who understands this and has trained himself for it will emerge as winners.
Right, sir. So I think the message seems to be very clear, and I think the writing is on the wall. As you very beautifully put it, if any layer of the value chain does not add value, I think it's there in their name to be taken. So if they're not adding value, I think they're going to become redundant. That is a very, very important message or a takeaway from what you just shared. And also the last part which you shared, in a nutshell, I think gives clarity on the kind of complexity of the ecosystem we're talking about, the different types of vehicles and the different generation of vehicles that are coming in. So yeah, so I think it goes without saying that anybody who wants to be successful in such a marketplace should really have a very complete and a holistic understanding about, you know, the kind of market they're dealing with. So makes a lot of sense as well. Your views on, you did mention sometime back that no point waiting for the government and their stimulus package, but over the last week or 10 days, we've heard about the government stimulus package, a lot of support for the MSME sector there. But overall, we've seen voices from the auto industry say that the auto industry has, by and large, been overlooked in this stimulus package. So your views on this, and what do you think the government can do or can do to actually support and revive the demand and boost sales in the auto sector? Your thoughts, Mr. Murali?
I don't think I can speak for the entire industry as such because it's a very vast industry. But there are definitely elements which are of relevance to us in the trade. An MSME, a very good garage or a larger dealer can qualify now as an MSME and therefore has better access to loans. So you should start thinking in that direction too. I mean, people are saying, I have a cash crunch, I have a cash crunch. Now there's an MSME package, which you also just mentioned. The larger garages can become part of that. They can qualify now under an MSME, for example. So more than that, I think it's not a government or a country. It is how you learn to adapt to a completely new environment and how quickly you do it. You can get any kind of support to start digitization. If you're not going to do it, you're not going to do it. Today, even Harvard is doing a course online. It's something which fascinates me. You can actually do a course in Harvard. And this used to be a dream for people to even to enter the Harvard University. You do it online. You can do a Singapore course online. You do a German course online. Right? So when you have possibilities, possibilities exist. That's the way I think you should look at it. I think the government is doing its best. They're doing whatever they can. And it's up to the industry now to see what they can do to take advantage of those and then move on. Just move on. You know, as I gave you one example, MSME was one example. And the dealers now take advantage of it, for example. So there are definitely advantages. Similarly, the whole agri package. If the agri package is positive, the tractor industry should take advantage of it, right? If the BS6 is coming on, sooner or later, the car industry will get advantage of it, right? So let's leave it at that.
Brilliant. Yeah. So makes it clear as well. I mean, look at positives and look at opportunities rather than look at shortcomings and keep brooding about. I think that is also very very important. Like many people in the industry feel very rightly so. I think staying positive in these times is probably of very utmost importance, if you may call it so. So you mentioned about digitization, how it is definitely something that's going to completely change the game and transform the industry. Any more opportunities that you see that emerge from this crisis? Could be for the component sector or for the trade, the aftermarket sector. Any further opportunities that arise out of this crisis?
One area is localization. Everyone has learned that being dependent on global supply chain is a problem. So this is a chance for the local make in India to really flourish. And I'm a strong believer in Indian jugaad. 4 months back, we didn't know what was a mask. Today, everybody makes a mask. Nobody knew what was a sanitizer. They thought it was something exotic. Today, everybody in the street has a bottle. He carries it, whether it's a washing bottle, nobody knows, but he's got a sanitizer bottle. Right? We didn't know what was a ventilator, and now everybody knows what is a ventilator, and the prices and costs are coming down, down, down. So definitely yes, localization is a huge opportunity for the entire industry. And similarly, the entire aspect of safety. Safety doesn't mean just brakes. Safety can be clean air. Clean air can be cabin filters. Clean air can be common rail injectors. So the exhaust gas recycling. So the whole aspect of safety with clean air is a huge opportunity. And third is for youngsters like you. You have a new area. I mean, it's a new line, it's a new world. You can have electric vehicles. There was a time when you had an STD booth. Now you do not know what it is. There's a time you had a waiting queue for telephones. Now my entire office is this. It's a smartphone. And in today's world, when the whole normal of a car is shifting towards diagnostics, common rail, safety, you have huge opportunities. And if you localize it, you have a chance to sell in neighboring countries. You may not want to sell in Guatemala, but you can certainly sell in Sri Lanka. So there are clear opportunities, big chunks in safety-oriented things, in localizing, limited export, and also to me, the entire topic of supply chain. It's not a topic very well understood in India. You always felt Gatti or somebody like that was just a logistics provider. That supply chain is a cost, is a time. You can save on the cost, you can save on the time. Is now people are feeling it because necessity is the mother of invention. And now you suddenly realize if I don't have a supply of even a vegetable, I know how much it pinches. And then you realize the value of the truck or the Tata Ace, which brings the vegetable. Then you'll know what it means to give up parts for that. So supply chain will change from simple subject to almost a science, is my view. Supply chain will become more analytics, science, and that again is an opportunity. So there are definitely opportunities which come. Every crisis should be seen as an opportunity. In the terms of basics, it's always financial management, financial prudence. Where can I not save costs, not cut costs, but improve productivity? So in addition to that, I've mentioned a few of them already. So there are opportunities.
Wonderful, sir. Fantastic. I mean, the viewpoint, every crisis must be seen as an opportunity. I think it is a wonderful way of looking at things. I think, and that's definitely the way forward um, in future as well. This financial year, just a disclaimer before this question, obviously nobody knows the future. Nobody can predict what's going to happen. We all understand. But your take on the current financial year, April has been a very uh, historic for a dubious reason that there were zero vehicle sales in our country. The first month of BS6 as well. How do you see the rest of the financial year panning out for the Indian automotive market and also for LIS as a company, if you can, and also follow it up with the next financial year, assuming things get better in the coming few months? What is your take on FY21 and FY22?
I don't think anything is going to get better automatically in the next few weeks or a few months. I see no possibility of that. I think it's going to be a long haul. We have to climb the mountain, and you have to be prepared to climb the mountain. Clearly, April was beaten and bold. To avoid an innings defeat in this financial year, we need a lot of cost management, cash management, financial prudence, increase in productivity. We have to go back to the drawing board and do the basics. If every product I have should add more value to the customer at lower costs, and that will be the challenge. Nobody is going to pay a premium to me unless it's an emergency, and I cannot pass on my cost structure to him. I do not see any big miraculous improvement happening even in the next 12 to 18 months. I think it will be at least that kind of time frame, which means for May of last year figures to be reached, it will not be this May. It may probably not even be next year's May. Nothing is going to happen. And in between, if you have some natural calamities like the cyclone in West Bengal and Orissa, those states are going to go back by a bit more. And if the monsoons fail, it will be a further. So it's a long haul. Go back to basics, absolute basics of finance, cost control, productivity improvement, zero defects. You have to go to the trenches and fight every inch of the way. That's it in terms of numbers. And in terms of profits, very difficult to say. I think some companies will still break even, many may not. Concept of high dividends and bonus shares are far, it's just a distant dream. The startups who may not have working capital for more than 1.5 to 2 months will be with their backs to the wall. They will have to go to the banks and get loans. And consulting companies which are related to consulting, the time for advertisement agencies and those consulting companies, they're going to be they'll really struggle. The first thing you cut is ad budgets, right? So they will be in difficulty. Yes, there could be some change or positive for people who transport drugs or vegetables, those niches for people who transport petrol and diesel. There could be those companies may be positive, but overall, it would be not a mixed bag, but a negative mixed bag in terms of financial analysis this year. Next year, may see a recovery, but not easy. If you don't work hard this year and become fit, next year you'll not be able to run in the Olympics. It's that kind of a situation. Okay.
Right, sir. I think you have given what you've just said doesn't give a very positive or an optimistic outlook, but I must say you've given a very practical and a measured kind of a very honest opinion. I think it's better to accept reality, accept things as they are, rather than hope and assume things, live in an imaginary world. So I probably agree with.
I strongly believe that whilst hope springs eternal in the human breast, what is needed is practicality. You have to go back to the trenches and start from zero. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to be a long haul. It's not going to be easy. Just imagine, you put yourself, the truck may be lying on the outskirts of Indore. The driver is possibly a migrant who's somewhere in Bihar. The truck owner doesn't know the status of the truck lying in Transport Nagar. For him to start that fleet, get a driver, train him, make sure the vehicle is put on road, and then make sure the entire fleet has business regularly is a task. And he has lost 2 months. 2 months is 16% down. People say 2 months out of 12 is 16% down. So from minus 16 to come to some kind of a positive, straight away you need 1 more year. 1 month is 8.33. So 2 months is 16% down. And for you from minus 16 to come to even 0 is the next year. You're not going to jump to such an extent of grow by 30-40% and become plus 16 easily.
True. And all these are long haul indeed. Yeah, easier said than done. Definitely. I mean, complex and diverse set of challenges for different sectors, as you kind of gave some examples. I think for a fleet operator, it's a totally different set of challenges. For a trade, those involved in trade, it's something else. Those involved in manufacturing, I think it's another set of challenges. So, yeah, but very practical, Mr. Morley. Right? We'd probably ask you one one more on a medium to long term perspective. How do you think you did emphasize multiple times that we are not going to go back to the earlier world. It's going to be a new world. It's going to be we're going to have a new normal. What do you think will be the medium to long term impact of this pandemic on our auto industry per se? What do you see will probably change forever in an irreversible way?
I don't think it's only because of pandemic, but pandemic only hastened the shift of an auto industry becoming a mobility industry. People want to move from point A to point B. So they may not go for taxis, they may prefer to have their own two-wheelers because of safety and security reasons. For example, they'll certainly prefer to have electric vehicles rather than be dependent on myriad changes of petrol and diesel prices. Not just because of pollution, but also because of the price fluctuation. Digitization has come to stay. What no government, no captain of the industry has done, COVID has done. They've taught you about Zoom and Skype and Microsoft Teams and WhatsApps, and they've taught you that. So this combination is going to make sure that auto industry will become a mobility service provider. It's not going to be the traditional vehicles anymore with different rules of aftermarket governing it, which could be digital ordering, very quick service, stronger supply chains, and move in that way. The traditional mode will not die, but will struggle for profitability. But I'm an eternal optimist. I believe that Indian jugaad always recovers. The Indian auto industry learned from a carburetor to come up to a multi-point injection pump. And so there's no reason why we cannot overcome this challenge, which is a blessing in disguise, and emerge much stronger in the mid to long term. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. It was really, really wonderful listening to you. And I think that I observed a very, very interesting and very important mix of practicality and optimism. I think having these two together, I think is a wonderful trait, and it will definitely take us places. And probably a very big takeaway during this crisis for us and for everybody probably in the industry, everybody who's actually watching this video would tune into it, sir. So thank you so much for your views, for your time as well. Our pleasure to interact with you, Mr. Murali.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.